And I'm here now with Hannah Jacobson. She is from Book Award Pro, and we're going to talk about how authors can leverage their awards. I mean, we do the Book Fest Awards, obviously. And it just so happened that Hannah's company had submitted and does submit some authors to the awards. And when we crossed paths like that, we both just said, hey, let's have this conversation because in doing the Book Fest Awards, we have so many authors that come to us and say, hey, how do I leverage it? What do I do now that I've won? So, Hannah Jacobson, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Desiree. And it's really important. If you're an author feeling like I've won an award, now what? You're absolutely not alone. It's a very common question, and let's find some ways to help you with that today.
Absolutely. Let's start more at the beginning of the process. What can authors do when they're actually looking for awards places to enter? Should they be searching online? What recommendations do you have?
Yeah, so this is actually it's great that you walked it back because there's a lot of questions about book awards. How on earth do you even find them? There are actually thousands of awards out there. So when you're trying to figure out what to submit to, of course, that can feel really overwhelming. So, in full disclosure, my company, Book Award Pro, makes it easy for authors. We make it our full time jobs to research awards out there. We've got thousands in our database with thousands more always being added. So, that's know that there's an entire company out there built on this concept of there's a lot of awards out there, and how do I find what's good for my book? If you're doing research on your own, a couple of litmus tests you can use, or a couple of things that might be useful for you, are to get in touch with the award sponsor. See what their response is to you. Do they have good support? What are some of the ways that they support their winning authors? How do they handle award entries? Looking for digital submissions, which the Book Fest does. Digital submissions will save you a lot of money. That way, you don't have to send physical book copies. You can upload a digital book copy to the award for judging. So that's a couple of tips on, if you decide to go it alone and figure out what awards are out there for you.
Yeah, because definitely there are a lot out there and they're not all the same. And in some cases, too, you might need to be a membership of a certain organization in order to enter. And knowing that enough in advance so that you're a member before you try to submit can be important too. Um, about the reason why awards are important, because I've heard this from authors too, and I think it comes from a place of humility, right? They don't want to feel like they're being thrust into the spotlight. They're humble. They did it because of the art and the craft. But what is it, what would you like to say to authors who aren't sure about how important awards are?
Oh, so awards, it's so common that I hear awards, um, when you're publishing a book, a little validation along the journey doesn't hurt. So when you get validation from an award, this outside credibility, we hear from authors that really, it kind of lifts their spirits and makes them believe more in their books. And with that, sometimes you'll hear me say that's the magic of book awards, because it kind of unlocks this confidence within you. And when you have this confidence, when you start feeling more comfortable sharing your book, that builds awareness, and that awareness drives marketing that's good for your book. That's how the word gets out. And also know that it's also very common to feel like you don't want to be thrust into the spotlight. That's not your comfortable place to be. So if you're struggling with that, know that you don't have to be a walking billboard to make the most of your award. There are ways that you can share in a very genuine and authentic way that feels good for you, but also feels good for your readers and people you want to connect with.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something there as somebody who helps authors with their PR and their promotions, even just being able to say author of the award-winning book, it gives that credibility to that book and that author. In addition to everything else you talked about, that validation and ooh, how good it feels. Okay, A lot of authors then ask the question. So if they've entered and they've won, because you don't know if they've actually won, but if they have won, then what? How do they leverage book awards?
Oh, so there's keep in mind that your award journey will be different from another author, and whatever your goals are may be very different, and that's totally okay. So we see authors all the time use book awards to get another book published, to bring awareness to other books that are part of the same series, to actually kind of revitalize an older book. Maybe you published a book a few years ago and you want to kind of rekindle the fire. An award can do that for you. So just a couple of different ways that you can, you know, tactically use your award. First and foremost, don't forget your email signature, which sounds so simple, but you would be surprised the kind of traction you can get by including award-winning author in your email signature. Even if you're a professional and maybe your full-time role is not being an author, including this award-winning status in your email signature, just it's a very genuine, very clean, professional way to present yourself. And so, say that you are a doctor or a nurse, or maybe you work in the local community, maybe you're a volunteer. Just every time that someone notices you're an award winning author, that brings awareness to your work. And that's just one way to kind of build that really authentic readership. Another quick way, and I'd love to hear from Desiree too. Another quick and easy way to share this news is to share on social media. So I'm a really big fan of at Book Award Pro. We call this story marketing. Story marketing is sharing about your book in this really authentic way, and just sharing the kind of news that happens. So like award winning, maybe you submitted for an award, maybe you submitted for a review, sharing that news on social media, other places, in a way that resonates with your audience. So when you become award winning, be sure it doesn't have to be a long post, but share that on social media. Take a picture of yourself. If that sounds really horrifying, take a picture of your book or even use a screenshot. Just make it really personal. Share the moment with your audience and let it move on. And in those moments, in that sharing about your book, I keep coming back to it, but you build awareness, and over time that really snowballs and creates really good traction for your book. And I'd love to hear from Desiree. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you definitely hit the nail on the head. When it comes to social media, yeah, shout it out, shout it proudly. With the Book Fest Awards in particular, we have social media profiles for the Book Fest. So tag us, because when we see that, then we can share that too. Don't be afraid to shag or hashtag so that that social media message that you put out there gets seen in a lot of different ways. I really like what you said too, Hannah, about using this to leverage for another book deal. This sounds so great when you go to a literary agent or a publisher, or you're trying to solicit that second book or that next book in your series, or just, another standalone book, to be able to say, I'm an award-winning author. That has gravitas. That carries some clout with it. And I think too, since you brought it up, I'm just going to mention, the PR side of things. There's no rule that says you can't send out your own press release, that you can't use this when your publicist or yourself, whoever you might be working with, is pitching you for media interviews, because that again has that gravitas attached to it. To be able to put that out there then can feed back into so many other marketing things that you're doing. You can put that into your social media, your newsletter marketing, etc. Putting it on your Amazon author profile, places like that. Goodreads, which is essentially like a social media platform, but for authors and book lovers. So I think there's a lot of different public relations type ways that somebody can leverage their book awards. I don't know. Do you have any other ideas?
Desiree, I absolutely love that. And I'd like to go back. I could love all of your points. One, really When the award program, like the Book Fest, is working really hard to share the news about your book, they also make it really easy to cross promote. So you can tag Book Fest in your post, and Book Fest is also likely to tag you too because they want to share the news. And that kind of cross promotion just builds extra awareness, and every bit really counts. So don't be afraid to look for those those kind of easy, simple ways that can really amplify your voice. And like Desiree said, don't be afraid to issue your own press release. That sounds a little intimidating, perhaps, but if you look into it, it doesn't have to be very hard. You can kind of keep it short and sweet, and just find ways to amplify your news in very authentic, engaging ways.
Yeah. And my next question, and then at the end, I'll ask you, Hannah, again, just to tell us some more about Book Award Pro and exactly how you work in case anybody's interested in finding out more. But when actually entering the awards, and you've mentioned that in some cases it's a digital entry, in some cases people are mailing in copies of their books. Are there any tips or things that people should maybe make sure that they have handy when actually entering, if indeed they're entering individually and doing it themselves?
That's a fantastic question. Yes. First and foremost, this sounds a little bit silly, but even just completing the application fully, submitting all the details required, your book title, your description, your whatever the award is asking for, make sure to actually thoroughly complete the application. That sounds very simple, but you'd be surprised how many applications actually go through and complete. It's really important to just put your best book forward. So that's one tip. Really fill it out the best you can. And at Book Award Pro, something we really like to do is to include a nomination letter. And this is a nice page that presents your book to the judging panel. And maybe some awards choose to not submit that to their judging panel, or even just the front facing staff. The award staff will see this nomination page. And every time that someone can put eyes on your book, that's a moment to share. So, two tips. One, complete your application to its fullest, really do your best to put your best book forward. And two, consider including a nomination letter to kind of make this polished professional awards package. Like the judges take notice, even the award staff see that your book is really professional and really interesting to read.
Brilliant advice. Okay, Hannah, quickly tell everybody what they can do if they're like, oh, I don't want to do this myself. How can they learn more about Book Award Pro and tell us exactly what it is that your firm does?
Sure. So Book Award Pro actually matches and submits books to awards and reviews. Our whole goal is to help you get validation for your work. So if you are just trying to research awards and see what's out there, we have a plan for you. There's all kinds of different options. We also offer our premium, it's called the Pro Plan, where every month we take our system will take care of a full professional award submission for you. So if you'd like to take the hands-off approach and have your book submitted for awards without having to monitor or manage anything, we can handle that for you. And you can always find out more on bookawardpro.com.
Hannah, thank you so much for being with us on the BookFest adventure.
Thank you so much, Desiree. I could talk awards with you anytime. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.